usually happens at night. Your phone is face down beside you, but you keep checking it anyway, like your body already knows what your mind is still trying to deny. You open their profile, close it, open your messages, read the last conversation again, stare at that final cold reply. Or worse, the silence after it. And in that tiny, humiliating space between hope and reality, you feel it. That drop in your chest, that heat behind your eyes, that sick little question rising all over again. Why am I the only one feeling this? Why do I miss someone who can go this quiet? Should I text? Should I wait? Did they ever even love me the way I loved them? Am I losing them? Or am I losing myself? And here's the truth nobody tells you. Your ex does not come back because you proved your love harder. They come back when the version of you that was reaching, waiting, explaining, and abandoning yourself is no longer there to return to. You're not failing at love. You're not weak because this hurts. And this is not proof that you were too much or not enough. It's proof that attachment is real, loss is real, and your nervous system does not know how to act casual around heartbreak. By the end of this video, you're going to understand the one shift that makes an ex feel your absence in a completely different way, why chasing always kills your power, and how to become the kind of person who is no longer easy to leave and impossible to forget. Let's get into it. The mindset reframe. Most people believe getting an ex back is about saying the right thing, posting the right photo, timing the perfect text, or making them remember the good times. But the real truth is much deeper than that. Beneath the surface, breakups are not just about missing a person. They are about what happens to identity, safety, and emotional access when a bond gets cut. Most couples never understand this. Your partner's nervous system reads your energy before their mind ever explains it. If your energy says, "Please choose me so I can feel okay again," they don't feel pulled in. They feel pressure. Even if they still care. Even if they still miss you. Even if part of them is still emotionally available in ways they don't know how to name. Because when safety leaves a relationship, love doesn't always disappear. A lot of times, it goes underground. And after a breakup, the anxious part of you usually wants closeness to stop the pain. The avoidant part of them, if that's their pattern, usually wants distance to stop the pressure. That is why trying harder often pushes them further. Not because your love is wrong, but because your pursuit lands on a flooded nervous system, like knocking harder on a door that is already trying not to break. Here's the thing. This is not about manipulation. Not playing hard to get, not acting cold, not pretending you've moved on, but becoming emotionally unavailable to the old cycle where your worth rises and falls based on whether they reach for you. That's the one thing. Come back to yourself so fully that your energy is no longer chasing, collapsing, or negotiating for love. Because the moment you do that, two things happen at once. You heal, and for the first time, they get to feel what life is actually like without constant access to you. And here's what changes everything. When an ex can no longer rely on your availability, your attention, your reassurance, or your predictable reach. They are finally forced to encounter your absence instead of managing your presence. That is where longing starts. That is where curiosity starts. That is where someone who left can suddenly feel the weight of what they lost. 1. Stop making your pain their job. Most couples don't realize how quickly heartbreak turns into pursuit. Most people in relationships think, if they just understood how much this is hurting me, they'd come back. But the deeper truth is that pain does not create attraction when it is handed to someone as a responsibility. It creates pressure, guilt, and emotional fatigue. Your nervous system wants relief. So you reach, you explain, you send the paragraph, you try one more honest message. And somewhere inside you, the unspoken thought is, if they really see my pain, they'll finally understand what they're doing to me. But most exes don't feel pulled toward that. They feel cornered by it. Here's a real difference. Disconnecting version. I haven't slept in days. I can't do this without you. Can you please just tell me if you still care? Connecting version. I'm not going to keep pulling on something that's not being freely given. I care about you, but I'm stepping back and focusing on my own healing now. One is asking them to regulate your pain. The other is showing them you can hold your own center. And when you do that, the emotional weight leaves the conversation and lands where it belongs, inside their own heart, not inside your message thread. That's when the dynamic starts to breathe again. That's when your ex stops feeling like the manager of your emotions and starts feeling the loss of your presence in a way they cannot control. 2. Become unavailable to the old version of you. And this is the one most people never figure out. Most couples break up, but then keep the old dynamic alive. Same checking, same emotional access, same half-open door. Same pattern where one person leaves but still gets to feel wanted, important, and central in the other person's life. That is the real trap. Because attachment doesn't just live in the relationship. It lives in the pattern. In who texts first, in who waits, in who folds, in who stays emotionally on call. But here's what nobody explains. If your ex can still feel you right there, still available, still revolving around them, there is no real loss for their nervous system to process. Scar tissue in love forms like that. Slowly, quietly. Over 100 moments where someone learns, I can leave, and they will still be right here. Not revenge, not silence games, not punishing distance, but a clean break from the version of you that kept volunteering for emotional leftovers. Disconnecting version. You see their story and post something vague hoping they notice. You reply fast when they breadcrumb. You leave the emotional lights on. Connecting version. You stop feeding the half-connection. You stop rewarding confusion with access. You let your behavior say, you do not get the full version of me while giving me the partial version of you. Most couples never do this because it feels terrifying. Because inside, part of you is whispering, if I really let go, what if they never come back? And honestly, that fear is real. But it's also the doorway. Because the moment you become unavailable to the old cycle, you become visible in a new way. That's the shift that turns you from familiar comfort into meaningful absence. 3. Rebuild a life that doesn't need their witness. Here's the part no one talks about. Most people after a breakup are not just grieving the person. They're grieving who they were with that person. The routines, the identity, the future they built in their head. Research on breakups shows that one of the deepest injuries is often loss of self, not just loss of love. PMC, NCBI, APA. That is why this matters so much. When your entire emotional world is still organized around your ex, they remain the center even in their absence. And if they are still the center, you are not actually healing. You are orbiting. Most couples mistake that orbit for devotion. But the real truth is that emotionally mature love does not ask you to disappear when someone leaves. It asks you to return to yourself more honestly than before. So rebuild. Not performatively. Not so they'll see it. Not a glow-up as a strategy. But a real return. Your mornings, your body, your friendships, your purpose, your creativity, your peace. The parts of you that got withdrawn while you were busy trying to hold on to someone else. Disconnecting version. I just want them to see I'm doing better. Connecting version. I'm building a life that feels real to me again, whether they ever witness it or not. And here's the internal shift your ex can feel, even from far away. Wait, they're not frozen anymore. They're becoming someone I no longer have automatic access to. That is powerful. Because intimacy is not built by begging someone to remember you. It is built by becoming fully alive again. And when you do that, the emptiness they left behind stops being a shrine and starts becoming a doorway. That's when your life stops feeling like a waiting room and starts feeling like home again. 4. Regulate before you respond. This is where it gets really interesting. Most couples think attraction is about chemistry. But after a breakup, a huge part of attraction is emotional steadiness. Your nervous system in heartbreak is like a smoke detector. It cannot tell the difference between abandonment and actual danger. So every silence feels like an emergency. And emergencies make people chase. They make you send the text you regret. They make you react to breadcrumbs like they are resurrection. They make one "hey" feel like hope, when really it's just contact. But here's what changes everything. The ex who feels safest to come back toward is not the one still exploding, pleading, spiraling, or decoding every move. It's the one who feels grounded, present, clear. Not cold, not closed, just no longer ruled by panic. This isn't a communication hack. This is what it looks like when someone has learned to love without losing themselves in the process. Disconnecting version. They text, "Hope you're good." You instantly reply, "I miss you. Do you want to talk about us?" Connecting version. You pause, you breathe, you notice what's happening in your body. Then you answer from self-respect. "I'm doing okay. Hope you are too." Simple, clean, real. And inside them, something quiet may register. They're not trying to pull me. They're different now. Most couples never understand how attractive regulation is. Because when you stop reacting from pain, the walls between you start to come down without either of you having to force a breakthrough. 5. Let silence do what explanations never could. And this is the one most couples keep interrupting. Most people cannot tolerate the silence after a breakup because silence feels like loss made audible. So they fill it with closure talks, with casual check-ins, with just wanted to say, with emotional noise. But silence has a job. It reveals, it clarifies, it exposes what was being numbed by constant contact. Not more paragraphs, not one last conversation, not another attempt to make them see, but the kind of space that finally lets their own thoughts get loud enough to hear. Because if you are always there explaining your value, they never have to feel the absence of it. If you are always offering access, they never have to question what life feels like without it. Silence is not empty. It is contrast. It is emotional negative space. It is where memory stops fighting your presence and starts meeting your absence. Disconnecting version. I know you said you need space, but I just need to say one more thing so you understand me. Connecting version. I've said what I needed to say. I'm going to honor the distance now. Most couples fear that silence means the story is over. Sometimes it does. But sometimes, honestly, silence is the first moment the story becomes real enough for the other person to finally feel it. Why does it suddenly feel so quiet? That's what starts moving through them. Why do I miss hearing from them? Why does the day feel flatter without them in it? And when you allow that silence to do its work, your absence stops being theoretical and starts becoming emotional reality. 6. Stop trying to be chosen. Start choosing yourself. Here's the deeper wound. Most couples don't break you because they ended. They break you because the breakup touches something older. The place in you that already believed love had to be earned. The place that says, if I can just say it better, prove it better, be softer, calmer, hotter, less needy, more understanding, maybe I'll finally be enough. That is not love. That is self-abandonment dressed up as devotion. And your ex can feel that energy. Not consciously, maybe. But beneath the surface, they feel when your center is with them instead of with you. They feel when your longing is asking for reunion, but your posture is asking for rescue. This is where identity changes. This isn't a trick for getting your ex back. This is just what two emotionally mature people naturally do. They do not beg for what is not being freely offered, and they do not audition for a role they were already supposed to be loved in. Disconnecting version. What can I do to make you see this could still work? Connecting version. If it ever happens again, it has to be mutual, clear, and real. I'm not going to drag someone toward me. Most couples never say the second line because it costs them the fantasy. But it gives them their dignity back. And that dignity changes your whole emotional field. She's not trying to convince me anymore. He's not collapsing toward me anymore. That lands deeply. That's when your ex stops feeling like the judge of your worth and starts feeling like someone who may have lost access to something real. 7. Want them if you want, but don't need them to come back. And this is the final level. Most couples confuse desire with dependence. They think healing means pretending not to care. It doesn't. You can still love them. You can still miss them. You can still feel the unspoken longing in your chest. But the deeper truth is that your power returns the moment your peace no longer depends on their return. That is the one thing. Not chasing less, not wording it better, not becoming harder to read, but becoming whole enough that their return would be a choice, not a cure. Because when an ex senses that you genuinely want them, but no longer need them, something profound happens. The pressure disappears. The old cycle breaks. And maybe for the first time, they can feel you as a person again, instead of a problem they were trying to manage. Disconnecting version. Please tell me if there's still a chance, because I can't move on without knowing.
Connecting version. I'm open to what is real, but I'm not putting my life on hold waiting for an answer. Here's the internal monologue that often gets triggered when that energy is real. They're actually letting go. I thought they'd always be there. Why do I feel them more now that they've stopped reaching? Most couples never get here, because this is where fantasy dies. But man, this is also where self-respect comes back online. And whether your ex returns or not, this is the shift that turns heartbreak into becoming. That's the moment a relationship stops feeling like a rescue mission and starts feeling like something that would have to be chosen cleanly or not at all. The close. So if you take anything from this, let it be this. The one thing that makes an ex most likely to come back is not chasing them better. It's becoming someone who is no longer available for half-love, mixed signals, emotional crumbs, or the old pattern that taught them they could leave and still have all of you. This isn't a checklist. It's an identity shift. When you internalize this, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop performing pain and start rebuilding presence. You stop asking, how do I make them choose me? And start becoming the kind of person who never has to beg to be chosen again. And whether they come back or not, here's what becomes real. You do. You come back to yourself. You come back to your standards. You come back to your nervous system. You come back to the parts of you that were getting smaller just to keep a connection alive. And that changes everything. Because the real power was never in making them chase you. It was in becoming someone who no longer chases what cannot meet them halfway. Mic drop line. The moment you stop trying to get your ex back is often the exact moment you get yourself back. And that is the energy nobody forgets.